Well, Alex, thanks for talking to us. It's a tough day for everybody to take, of course, at the weekend, how it all ended up, but there's another fixture coming up very quickly. Do you welcome that, or would you rather have a benefit of a week on the training ground?
No, you welcome fixtures coming thick and fast. Whether you win or lose, when you win it's good because obviously that momentum can very quickly be carried into the next game, and most definitely when you've lost a game of football, certainly in the circumstances that we experienced on Saturday, you want to very quickly put that behind you and jump into the next game. And luckily it's only 3-4 days around the corner from the Salford game, which is good for everybody, so we can get it out of the system, and obviously the aim is to revert back to winning ways.
Football management is all about ups and downs, highs and lows, but trying to keep on a level sort of way that you go about the job. But how do you get over setbacks like the weekend that you had?
Well, I'm very realistic in the fact that I've been in football since the age of 12 as a player and coach, now a manager, and you realise, particularly at a club like Crewe, we're not Man City or Liverpool, we are going to lose some games of football, and it's quite important that everybody stays quite level with that, because I think results, when they go against us, certainly over the next couple of months, are going to be met with a lot of anxiety from supporters, and understandably so, because they were scarred by losing a lot of games of football last season. So the natural instinct from them is to think, here we go again, this is more of the same, when in reality we've lost one game out of the first three and won the other two. So I think everybody would have taken that, so it really has got to be put into context, and I realise that context can sometimes get lost with many because of what happened last season. So the next 2 or 3 months, I think, those sort of results, and hopefully they don't happen very often, are going to be met with that type of reaction. But within this building, we're very level, very balanced and measured about what's happened. And as I say, win the game tomorrow night, which we're going to go all out to do, and we're in the realms of having a really good start to the season. So there's certainly no panic stations whatsoever, not from me.
I suppose the one big disappointment was you started off 5 goals for, 1 against in your 2 league games. The last 2 games you conceded 7 goals. That's definitely one thing that you were always trying to improve on from what happened last year, unfortunately. 80 odd plus conceded.
Yeah, absolutely not good enough the last 2 games in terms of those goals conceded. You always look for positives amongst obviously negative situations, and in both games obviously there were a lot of changes in the Grimsby game. That was my choice, so again, not an excuse, it's just context. And obviously on Saturday we played for 10 men for the vast majority of that game, during which 2 of the 3 goals were conceded. So we would expect and hope with our selected 11 in these league games that certainly wouldn't become the norm, and you saw in the first 2 games how organised we were with the structure behind the ball. So we move on to the Sutton game and expect that to continue, so that we've got that platform then to win the game at the top end of the pitch.
We know that Masala Sambu said sorry. It was all too late, unfortunately, because he'd done the damage, but he said sorry. He's held his hands up. He's admitted he made a big mistake. But how hurting is that you saw a player lose his discipline?
Well, massively, because it wasn't a team thing. The team didn't lose for discipline. An individual did. We just spoke to him there at length and gone through obviously the punishment as a result of that, which is accepted. And it just extends far beyond the game itself. It extends to the fact that we took over 1,000 fans there, and they didn't see the game that they wanted to see, and that was hugely distorted by the fact that we went down to 10 men. And we don't just rock up on a Saturday and hope for the best. We planned for 4 or 5 days in advance for that game. Planning for that game started well in advance of the Grimsby game, let alone after the Grimsby game. And whilst of course you do put plans in place to play with 10 men, you do very little work on it, because in a game of football, the odds are you're going to stay in an 11 situation more often than not. So it was disappointing in so many ways, because obviously the ripple effect from having a man sent off is the outcome that you saw.
It is early days, and that sends out a message to your players, doesn't it, that you aren't going to tolerate any discipline problems like that.
No, there were 3 things that we've highlighted this season that we must have, and one of them, I won't go through them, but one of them was standards and discipline. They keep great standards around the building in general, and they're a great set of lads in that respect. The discipline side has been excellent as well. There's been no evidence, obviously, of any sort of lack of discipline in the game, certainly not collectively or individually. And it's a reaction that was very out of character, and it's not something that we typically ever see from Crewe players, is it? or in general really across the board. So it's not something that obviously he needs to take home with him from here on in, because that's not going to do anybody any head. You know, we draw the line under it, we move on. And he's got some making up to do when he comes back into the team, if he gets back into the team, because he's lost his place now as a result of that.
Let's move on then. Sutton are up next. They've started okay in the Football League, haven't they?
Yeah, and this season they've been nice and solid with the starts as well. Obviously they haven't ripped up any trees in terms of score lines, but Sutton are very competitive, very organised, direct in the way that they play, but effective. And that's why they only ended up 1 point off the playoffs last season. Obviously they were going into the final day, there was an opportunity to still get in there, and I expect them to be in a similar position this year, because they've got a very good culture there, and that's something that's been built up by the manager, who's done a fantastic job. And yeah, very difficult fixture, and one of many that we're going to have to contend with of that type this season.
But the big positive for you is it's a chance to get back on track, and as you quite rightly pointed out early on as we chatted together, you know, you could really have a good solid start to the season, another 3 points on the board come 10 o'clock Tuesday night.
Yeah, another challenge in terms of showing the mentality. The mentality obviously to win the first home game, the first away game was passed with flying colours. Now, arguably, I think it's an even greater challenge, winning after your first loss. So let's see how the boys respond in that respect. You know, all the signs from the players across the whole of the pre-season and the start of the season is that they've got a much stronger mentality than we witnessed last year. But the proof's in the pudding, isn't it? That's got to be shown out on the pitch during games rather than being just words.